DeMar DeRozan, I'm here for a good time, not a long time. And it wasn't really that good of a time.
It was a time.
It was a time to be alive. And Jake Fisher is reporting a lot of what we all already knew. And I guess I should say that we assumed, as far as the Kings preparing to move on from DeMar DeRozan. And I would say, again, just to continue that conversation, DeMar DeRozan prepared to move on from the Kings. Because I don't think this is a, whoa, we don't need you. I think this is a, hey, I don't think this relationship is going to be mutually beneficial. The focus in the California capital shifts now to what sort of dealing we could see from the Kings' new regime. There's been no shortage of rumbles since the hiring of Scott Perry as the general manager. The Sacramento Kings are expected to gauge the trade target for veteran swingman DeMar DeRozan. And look, part of this too, and I do wish things looked better early with DeMar DeRozan, but he is going to have to look in the mirror a little bit and kind of decide what is it exactly that he wants out of the end of his career. Because, and it's a tough one because he can still score at a high level, but you almost have to understand that you're not going to be able to do that if you want to win, right? I mean, Russell Westbrook, and there's a crazy report out on Russell Westbrook, by the way, about arguments. And I don't know, Russell Westbrook got some of the worst PR. Like the rat squirrel thing that I always joke about. Rats are just squirrels with tails that aren't fluffy and bad PR. Russell Westbrook has terrible PR, and we'll get to that story because it's pretty nuts. But
I see what you did there.
But when you look at DeMar DeRozan and how elder statesmen in the league have made decisions and said, okay, I got to change who I am if I want to keep doing this. Russell Westbrook didn't want to come off the bench. Carmelo Anthony, one of my favorite drops ever. They say I got to come off the bench, P. But he eventually did come off the bench because he wanted to stay in the league. DeMar DeRozan is interesting because he can score at a starter level, but if he wants to win, he's going to end up on a team that doesn't need him to score at that level. And I would argue that I'd rather come off as a six man and be able to just run whatever I need to run versus, okay, I'm still a starter, but I'm the third option because it's, Kawhi, Hart, whatever the case may be. So DeMar DeRozan has to decide what is it that he wants out of these last couple years of his career, and he has to make sure that aligns with whatever team that is willing to trade for him. I think this will be one of those kind of hybrid, hey, we've had conversation and this is going to work out for the team that we're trading you to. Conversations have been had. We're all on the same page. It's not going to be, DeMar is going to a team and he thinks that he's going to be this, but they actually need him to be that. I don't think that's going to be the case. So when I look at the options, somebody just responded to me on Twitter and they said the Clippers found their formula. And the formula is essentially what the Sixers tried to do with Joel Embiid, but that brother can't even play half the season. But basically, Kawhi is a spot starter. He don't care about accolades anymore. The problem is, are you going to get another all-star season from James Harden? But you spot start Kawhi Leonard throughout the season. And by the way, you had a crazy season from Zubats and Norman Powell. But if those guys are going to be those guys, which is a question in itself, but let's assume that they will, you add DeMar DeRozan, you let DeMar DeRozan, who's a bit of an Iron Man, help carry you throughout the regular season. And then when the playoffs come and Kawhi arrives, then you rock and roll in a different way. So somebody said that to me on social media. I thought that was an interesting way to look at it. I think that what we've seen is, okay, so DeMar DeRozan is going to be DeMar DeRozan, and then the playoffs are going to come, and you're going to tell him, hey, you can't be DeMar DeRozan anymore. And they're going to have to figure that out on the fly during the playoffs. That's the issue there.
For a team that is expected to be a contender.
And you now have DeMar DeRozan and James Harden on the same team defensively, which is also a bit of a problem. James Harden's gotten better defensively.
Yeah, I just don't think the Clippers are in the DeMar DeRozan game at this point, but I understand why people are. It's also hard to make the trade work for DeMar DeRozan to the Clippers without having to give up a lot of their defense. So I just not even thinking the Clippers are even in this game because, like we talked about before, it's a team trying to make a leap. I don't think the Clippers are trying to make a quote unquote leap because they feel like they're right there. They already have their two superstars.
Sure, but they just did not get it done.
Sure, but they also dramatically outperformed expectations this year.
Yeah. Clippers are a weird one, man.
Yeah, I just don't. As much as DeMar DeRozan wants to go to Los Angeles, and
he's already home, so
sure, as much as he'd like to get closer to home,
yes,
then the home he's
less
already
traffic or not a plane.
Sure. As much as DeMar DeRozan wants to, just neither team's situation makes sense for DeMar DeRozan, which
is why he's not on that team right now.
Yes, exactly. They tried to make this work back when he was in Chicago, and obviously before Luka got there, but getting DeMar DeRozan is not the move that's going to make Luka be like, yes, I am staying here for the next 5 years because DeMar DeRozan is something you make if you're a bad team trying to get into contention, or you're a play-in team trying to make a leap to the playoffs. I say this fully acknowledging that's exactly what happened last year. DeMar DeRozan was a free agent. Anyone in the league could have signed and traded for him, and the team that did was a play-in team trying to make the leap to the playoffs. That's probably the same fit that we're trying to find for DeMar DeRozan going into next season. A play-in team trying to get to the playoffs, an 11 or 12 seed trying to get to the play-in, or, Detroit, which is its own unique situation because of just how dramatic of a leap they took this season.
I'm just looking here at the stand. Yeah, the Wizards. I feel like the Wizards, honestly, just feels like the Wizards are a smidge better than they played. I know they're not, but I don't know that they're completely out of play. I'm being dead serious.
Sure, I mean they have 3 versions of DeRozan on their team already.
It's not I feel like they could at least be. Again, that's not what DeMar DeRozan wants. But let's go through them here. The Wizards, okay, not good enough for DeRozan, and obviously I'm just assuming here,
unless we want Middleton.
I haven't seen that brother play in feels like 3 years.
I mean, that's the only thing. It's just they have to pay someone. So would you rather just pay $10 million less?
Don't they got Marcus Smart? Don't they got Marcus Smart?
Well, he's a free agent.
Oh, might sign Marcus Smart.
Yes.
Okay, so let's go through them. The Wizards, and hang with me here. I'm just saying how it would or wouldn't work. Wizards, I would assume not good enough for DeMar. Hornets, I would assume not good enough for DeMar. Sixers are interesting. They are. They have to figure out. We're keeping an eye on, and I just saw Paul George is on the pivot announcing that he will get back to podcasting because I know everybody like me was on the edge of their seats. But the Sixers are interesting. They need to pick a timeline, and they could pick a timeline that makes sense for DeMar DeRozan. They got Kelly Oubre blowing kisses out there somewhere.
Yeah, the zombie Sixers finally getting the timelines right.
So I don't think the Sixers are completely out of it, right? You talk about, hey, Paul George, and you're paying him a ton of money. And what if he goes down? The Sixers need guys to just get through the regular season. DeMar DeRozan's your guy.
Are the Sixers just Eastern Conference Mavericks?
They were worse.
I'm saying okay, so you're saying they're in a worse spot.
They're in a worse spot, but they are in the East. And if Joel Embiid's knees are not completely dust, I could see DeMar. Hey, Philly, it's a cool city. You got Jared McKay. You got the young talent. You do have the number 3 pick, right? So you can maybe, like I said, they got to decide timelines there. You have obviously Tyrese Maxey, who. I don't think he's the odd man out, but between Jared McCain and Tyrese Maxey, I don't know what happens there. Then you got Paul George and his podcasting. I think the Sixers could be a sleeper. I don't know, could the Kings, Kelly Oubre, why does Kelly Oubre have Sacramento written all over him at this point in his career?
He's been pretty much everywhere else.
At this point in his career.
it would be weird. Just the whole thing. And by the way, that it wouldn't work just straight up. They have to.
Jared McCain.
That's something. Kelly Oubre also has a player option he might decline, so he might be a free agent.
Tyrese, bring my boy. If I get a team with Tyrese Maxey, okay, Bobby Portis, all right, Dalton Connect, now we're actually cooking.
Yeah, Tyrese Maxey, who they're gonna offer the Bucks Maxey for Giannis, and you're like, you know what they're gonna settle on? Just shipping Maxey out of town.
Every time I bring up Tyrese Maxey, everybody says he's overrated anyway.
Sure, but he's still better than DeRozan.
Yeah, you got to throw in something else.
And
would you trade? Hold on. Would you trade DeMar DeRozan and Malik Monk for Tyrese Maxey?
I would, but the Sixers wouldn't.
I'm throwing a second rounder. I'm always ready to just throw in a second rounder. All right.
It's probably going to have to be Keegan in your theoretical situation.
No. 76ers, I think, is in play. Nets could be, if they get Giannis, I think they could be, let's add some scoring. So Nets aren't cooked yet.
We just need them to get Giannis.
Yeah, get Giannis and be a team.
By the way, screwed last night by the lottery.
Yeah.
They fell from like 5 to 7.
Yeah, there you go. Raptors, I think, are in play. Bulls, no. Hawks, no. I don't think so.
Only if it's like, we talked about it yesterday, only if it's packaging Trae Young to
so I guess
a larger deal.
And then it's why do the Hawks want the 3-team thing.
Yeah.
Let's stay away from the 3 teams for now. We have Chris Watkins saying Miami on the Sac Chat. Got the Heat right there. I would agree.
Yes, I think that's their plan D.
Yes.
If they don't get Giannis, they don't get Kevin Durant, and they strike out in free agency, then yes, I think they would pivot to DeMar DeRozan for Wiggins.
Magic, yes. Pistons, I don't know that they would want him, but I think it's possible.
I think
you lose Malik Beasley. Again, this goes back to I sounded like the Kings right here. They lost Malik Beasley, so let's add another score. 2 completely different scores. If DeMar DeRozan plays like the way he played with the Kings, he cannot play on the Pistons.
The Pistons deal is as simple as, do they want DeMar DeRozan over Tobias Harris? Because that's the only way the trade can happen, is just flipping those two.
And I don't think I do, because they need more scoring, but that's the problem with DeMar DeRozan. Yeah, we need more scoring, but we don't need that much, and we need more defense than what you can give us.
Yeah, that's again, the trade-off they have to make. Because the reason why the Tobias one makes the most sense is that those two signed the exact same contract last offseason. It was 2 years, $50 million. So both of them, and I know DeRozan has the 3rd year that's $10 million or whatever, but the one thing that I don't want to skip past, which you brought up with the Wizards, is the Wizards deal makes sense only in a world where DeRozan has decided, or it gets to a point where it's like, hey, Miami's out, Detroit's out, no one wants him as a $25 million 3rd option. That one only makes sense if it's like, hey, we're going to flip you for Middleton, and the Wizards are just going to buy him out of his contract. And then he can go sign a vet minimum or a $7 million mid-level exception with another team. That's the only way I think the Wizards one makes sense. It's just like, hey, we'll take your $35 million Chris Middleton contract for 1 year.
Yeah.
You can take our $35 million owed to DeRozan and just buy him out if you want.
The Bucks, I just don't know. I'm going to say no on the Bucks, no on the Pacers, no on the Knicks, no on the Celtics, no on the Cavs.
Yeah, I think it's...
So you got about 5 teams in the East, 5 to 6. And we'll get to the West when we return. Alan Stiles, Sactown Sports. About 5 to 6 Eastern Conference teams we could see DeMar DeRozan joining. Very high-level stuff, as Kyle is playing more Kendrick. Let's get to the Western Conference teams, see what makes sense there. This is all coming off a report from Jake Fisher that the Kings are expected to gauge interest on the DeMar DeRozan trade market, which, I don't know what makes things official nowadays with social media and all the different platforms and mediums, but it's a report that we all kind of knew was already going to come out. So let's get to the Western Conference. I feel like the Western Conference might be honestly quicker than the Eastern Conference because there's just so much more hope in the Eastern Conference. Going back to the conversation about why are there conferences when so many stars are in the West now, and hey, you got the warmer states and things like that. So that all kind of is a part of it. So let's get to the Western Conference, as we were at about 6. I think we convinced ourselves of in the East.
Yes, for different reasons, about 5 or 6.
5 or 6. So let's start in the West now. Jazz, DeMar says no.
Unless it's a buyout situation. Again,
let's just go with straight up, I'm wearing the jersey.
Yes.
I'm wearing the jersey.
Unless he has no say in the matter, he's not going to Utah.
I'm not thinking he's going to Utah. I'm not going to be there.
If Utah could, they would probably flip DeRozan for John Collins.
Without a doubt. And and Kyle Draper would just levitate into the heavens if that happened. Pelicans.
Yeah, we've talked about that.
Yeah, I mean,
DeJounte Murray, CJ McCollum swap.
Yeah.
It's just saying that DeRozan's a better player than those guys.
So you got the Pelicans. I would say yes. I think that DeMar would take some convincing, but they do have talent. They do have talent, and they've had some bad luck. But DeJounte Murray, guys like that, they would be in the conversation if they can just all stay on the court, which is easier said than done. You got the Herb Jones is coming back, Trey Murphy, another leap there.
Just get a different vibe on the 2 guards.
Yes. Maybe New Jersey. They got to do something out there. So Pelicans, I would say yes. A mini homecoming with the Spurs, I don't see that. You got Harrison. Yeah, I just don't see that. Blazers?
No.
I don't believe so.
Unless it's going to be for Simons, which if I'm the Blazers, just ride it out with Simons.
The Suns are interesting to me. The Suns are a team to watch once they move on from Kevin Durant. And they're depending, because they might get a lot of future stuff for Kevin Durant more so than, and I know Kevin Durant has a crazy contract, but once Kevin Durant's moved, I think the Suns could be in the conversation.
I do want to go back real quick. The Blazers only in the situation where they want to just dump Jeremy Grant's contract, which means only a situation where the Kings want to pay 4 years, $120 million for Jeremy Grant.
And we're back to Jeremy Grant convos.
Do we want to
time.
Pay him for 4 years?
It's about time. I think. Hey, man, if you can't get a damn first round pick, and you're the only team that missed the playoffs, don't have a pick in the first round, well, then you got to pay Jeremy Grant $300 million in order to be a respectable team.
It's only an astronomical 120 over 4 years.
So I got the Suns. I'm not putting the Blazers because they already have timeline issues. So I'm not going to put the Blazers. We got the Pelicans. We got the Suns. Mavericks.
No.
He'd be ring chasing off the bench. But I don't think the Mavericks need that.
We're going to take Klay Thompson? What are we doing?
If Klay Thompson came to Sacramento, Kyle, you'd have to buy a jersey. You'd have to.
Oh, I would do more than that.
You'd have to, just for all the times that you talk bad about that Hall of Famer.
I would get a custom jersey that says bum on the back of it.
Grizzlies, I don't think it's out of the question. I really don't.
I just don't know what direction they want to go. If they're going to trade Desmond Bane, I don't know how many takers they're going to have. But again, that's the Kings going into the mode of we're just going to take someone else's bad contract.
Yeah, let's just take whoever we need to. Warriors, no. Timberwolves, no. Clippers,
no.
I'm not completely done on the Clippers.
It's just not going to happen, man.
I'm putting one of the LA teams because I have to. And so it's either your choice. It's either the Lakers or the Clippers. But one of them's getting on this list.
I would go with the Lakers then.
Okay.
At least the Lakers can do the Rui Hachimura and Maxi Kleba.
Yes. And Dalton Connect while you're at it.
Not that one.
Okay.
Just Rui and Maxi Kleba.
Nuggets, no. Or I don't think so. Rockets, no. Thunder, no. Because the Rockets, to me, Rockets are another funny one because they need offense, right? But would you rather, let's say they strike out on Kevin Durant, okay? And Giannis. Would you rather, if you're the Rockets, you struck out on Giannis, you struck out on Kevin Durant, now you're saying, hey, we're not interested in Devin Booker. Do you look at a cheaper option in DeMar DeRozan, or do you think at this point, since we struck out, we're just going to see if Amen Thompson and Jalen Green can be better on offense?
Yeah, the only way that trade works at that point is just, do they want the offense of DeMar DeRozan and give up the defense of Dillon Brooks?
Mm-hmm. So I count here.
Which, by the way, Dillon Brooks on the Kings would be just a day.
Yeah. I think he would wear it well, to be honest with you. I count about 4. You could convince 5 teams. So in total, I have 10 teams, call it between 10 teams that would at least be in the conversation. And maybe there's a team that we're completely missing, right? So I got about 10 teams that we can convince ourselves of, so that could be anywhere really from about 7 to 12 based on some teams that we're missing and or some teams that actually aren't as interested as we think.
All right, so I'm kind of just making the list here. So we went Detroit, Washington, Toronto, Brooklyn, like, again, that we could convince ourselves under the right situation. We had Philadelphia, even though I don't understand how you were going to make that one happen.
It just don't worry about it.
We had Orlando, we had Miami, we had the Pelicans. Who else was there? You said Lakers.
Pelicans, Lakers, Suns.
Yeah, if we can convince Bradley Beal to come to Sacramento.
Oh, my goodness. And I think that was it.
I mean, you threw out the Grizzlies.
Oh, yes, Grizzlies as well. So 9 or 10.
Yeah, so I've got 11 here. 11, like, just could be on a weird situation possible.
And there's some teams that, a lot can change throughout these next couple months here. Based on who goes where Giannis goes, things like that. But I think the Kings will have options. This is a huge deal for Scott Perry. This is going to be the first big, I would assume, the first big move that Scott Perry makes. And I think a lot of Kings fans are still wounded, especially from last night with not having a draft pick. And also knowing, I saw people saying, see, if the Kings had just fought harder on that De'Aaron deal, they could have had a top 4 pick last night. The Spurs were not giving that up. You don't got to do that to yourself.
No.
Don't do that to yourself.
What? We could have at least talked about it.
Yeah.
And maybe if he had a couple years left on that deal. So now that we've whittled down the list real quick, I just want to spend our last few minutes here of the segment just doing a little version of matching DeMar DeRozan up to a team that works for him.
Okay.
We've got the teams that under some circumstance would be interested. Let's see if we can whittle this down a little bit more here. Little match game going on. So I came up with some criteria. Do you think DeMar DeRozan wants to go to a West team, an East team, or he would be indifferent?
I honestly feel like he'd be indifferent.
Okay. Well, we'll keep it at indifferent for now. We can whittle it down later.
Obviously, the obvious pick is the West, but he's already home, so.
All right, next up, playoff team, rebuilding, play-in team, or indifferent?
Yeah, I mean, I think it would be a playoff team.
So he would rather be on a contender right now if he had to pick.
Yes.
Okay, we'll whittle that down here, so let's get rid of them. I'll leave them for now. Boop. All right, we are down to 6 teams. Does he join a team with a top 15 defense right now? Yes, no, or it won't matter?
I don't think he cares, but I think the team would care, so I'll say yes.
Okay, so we have to have a team who already has a top 15 defense. So we can get rid of 3 more. All right. Does this team already have a number 1 or a number 2 better than DeMar DeRozan?
Yes.
Okay, we'll check that box. All right. And we can get rid of that team. And then we have, last one. Any other criteria you would like to add that DeMar DeRozan you think he would care about?
No.
You think we've done a good job whittling it down?
Mm-hmm.
All right, so at the end of this experiment, we are left with 3 teams. We have
the Magic's on there, I know.
The Orlando Magic, the Miami Heat, and the Detroit Pistons.
I think it's that simple. Call up Pat Riley, say, look, brother, Jovic, Jaime Jaquez, Done deal.
I don't think you're going to get that.
Done deal. Well, coming off the bench. What are we talking about? 2 bench players.
I think you're probably going to have to take Wiggins.
Give me Wiggins and Jovic, and I'll do it.
Let's see if it works on the old trade machine here. Let's see. Wiggins and Jovic for DeRozan is a success.
There you go. And a second-round pick. I'm leaving here with something. I'm telling you that right now.
The Kings would also be $4 million short of the luxury tax.
Hey, I know who loves to hear that. 12 o'clock hour coming up next. We have our Kings trade target of the day. We're headed back